Yes, LeBron James did kill the NBA All-Star game. Hello, good people. It is Todd Shannon, data scientist, social commentator, and getter of buckets. And I want to talk about the NBA All-Star game last night because it is without question the most unwatchable and egregious display of entitlement and a lack of connection of the fans and the players that I have ever witnessed. It's been on the decline, the NBA All-Star game that is, for at least a decade and has been the worst event in any sports league for at least the last 5 years, in my opinion. And despite that fact, and despite the fact that there have been many conversations and acknowledgments that this is clearly unacceptable and cannot continue, yesterday, the NBA not only duplicated its blatant disregard for the fans, but they took it to levels heretofore unseen. I watched like 30 seconds of it and I turned it off, and quite frankly, I was angry that I gave it that long. The question, of course, is how did we get here? Everyone thinks they understands the problem, but they don't really. We are fighting to grasp with what the issue is, and I think I have a good inkling as to why that is. And I'm interested in this not for basketball's sake per se, but as an avid basketball fan, I have to say I am greatly impacted by this. But I'm more concerned about what it says about the cultural patterns and things that we can apply to other areas of our lives. It's true here, and I think it's true in the culture and politics more broadly. And I want to just make those connections and give you my take on it. So let's start where I always like to start, which is the Bible. Okay, if you don't like the Bible, I'm sorry, that's what we do here. The Bible records the acts of the kings of Israel. And one of the most important patterns that emerge is how kings impact the behavior of the people. So when a king did the right thing, then the people did the right thing. But when the king was wicked, then the people did evil. And the most important thing to take from this is the influence of the king and how important it was for the king to be righteous. Now, as far as I know, there are no examples that I can think of where the king was evil, but the people still did the right thing. So this was a pretty important concept in the scriptures. Now, LeBron James has been called King James for good reason. For the last 2 decades, he really has been unquestionably the most important figure in the NBA. And really, I would say for at least 2/3 of his career, he's been the best player in the world. The reason why that's important is because it's important to examine his impact on the mentality of the players of the modern NBA. Whether or not you love or hate LeBron, it's clear that he was the first superstar in modern history to effectively say, you know what, I'm going to do what's best for me and only what's best for me. What's best for the organization I play for, my teammates or fans will be a distant second, and I'm going to make that clear. So when LeBron James famously, or perhaps infamously, said he was taking his talents to South Beach, he made it clear that his objective as an athlete was to basically serve himself. But his approach really didn't start there. Let's take a step back a little bit and just talk about LeBron James' participation in the slam dunk contest, or his lack of participation. For years, it was a tradition and almost an expectation for the most athletic and high-flying players in the NBA to participate in the dunk contest. In the 80s and the 90s, the dunk contest was one of the greatest spectacles in sports, and it was made popular by the likes of Julius Erving, Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins. All the basketball fans understand this. Even the late, great Kobe Bryant participated in it once. Vince Carter, probably the best dunker of all time, in-game or slam dunk contest, to be frank, he participated in it once. He shut the whole thing down. It was a classic. And it's what the great athletes of the previous generation did. LeBron, however, would break this tradition despite years and years of fan outcry for LeBron to participate. He refused. Now, think about this. This was the flagship marketing event for the NBA, that is NBA All-Star Weekend, and the dunk contest was perhaps the most important and popular event of them all. Not everyone is capable of participating in a slam dunk contest. It's not like the three-point contest where you can just get random guys that can shoot. It's for elite athletes only, and LeBron James is not only one of the most elite athletes in the history of the NBA, he's one of the most elite athletes in the history of sports. So, why didn't he participate even though everyone wanted him to? I think the answer is simple. I don't think He didn't see the upside. He said, there's nothing in it for me. He was already a megastar right when he came out of high school. He had a huge contract with Nike from day one of his professional career. He's just kind of like, where's the upside? What the fans want, what the NBA wanted, what would have been good for the league, just to see him just do it just once. No one's asking him to be like a perennial participant, just once. But he refused. The downstream impact of that has actually been quite impactful. Now, none of the great athletes participate. You think about Ja Morant. You think about Anthony Edwards, Zion Williamson. None of these guys has ever participated in the slam dunk contest. As a matter of fact, all of the new all-stars that are hyper athletic, they all skip it. But that was only a trend once LeBron James decided not to participate. Now, this is what LeBron James taught them. If there's nothing in it for you, then why do it? LeBron James ushered in what we now call the era of player mobility, and it's perceived by players of a previous generation as taking the easy way out. It started to trend when where every superstar player who had any leverage would say, I'm not going to do anything unless I get what I want. And they learned how to leverage their power over the organization and essentially hold them hostage. This is kind of the posture of the modern superstar, and that's something that LeBron James taught them. Ironically, this came back to bite LeBron as the ultimate example of player mobility when Kevin Durant decided to play for the Golden State Warriors. Those teams simply became unbeatable, and LeBron James ended up losing to the Golden State Warriors every time they played against them, the Kevin Durant Warriors, that is. And here's a good time to discuss the paradoxical nature of not being a me-first kind of person. I'm firmly of the opinion that if LeBron James had remained loyal to Cleveland and to his fan base, he actually would have won more championships overall. If Kevin Durant, think about it, if Kevin Durant doesn't go to Golden State, then there never would have been a team that LeBron James, at the peak of his powers, was basically incapable of beating because no one could beat that Golden State team. Not to mention the fact that he only won 2 championships in Miami out of the 4 years that he was there. So there's no reason to think that he couldn't have done that in Cleveland. But had he stayed, there would not have been a juggernaut in Golden State that basically beat them every time he faced them. So he could have had his 4 championships or whatever in Cleveland, and then there would have been a totally different conversation around him. But the bottom line is this. The self-seeking doesn't actually produce what you think it does. So the selfishness works against you. And this is why when you see things in the Bible about losing your life to gain it, or trying to gain your life, if you try to gain your life, you lose it. I know this is a metaphor for salvation, and I know this is, maybe mixing metaphors in a way that's a little bit dangerous, but sowing and reaping is a real thing in the Bible. And that's why it's a paradox, because we see the seemingly counterintuitive nature of people giving of themselves or giving up something that they want, but ended up getting more in return. And I think that this was the paradox of the LeBron James situation. Now, let's get back to the All-Star game, because that's what I want to focus on. What does this have to do with the All-Star game? Well, everything, of course. I mean, the modern NBA superstar has the ultimate what's in it for me mentality, and they learned that from LeBron James. Despite years of begging and pleading with the modern NBA superstar to compete during the All-Star game, the game has continued to spiral into a cartoonish caricature of itself. It is a grotesque insult to the basketball fan to be expected to consume this drivel, this toxic nonsense. It's a disrespectful product. The players know that everyone hates it, but they won't change. And why is that? Because there's nothing in it for them if they change. There's no consequence for failing to compete, and there's no incentive for them to do so. The previous generation did not think like this at all. If you played basketball in the 90s, you would have heard your coach say, it's about the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. The modern player is like a mercenary. They're the exact opposite of this. It's all about the name on the back of the jersey. It's all about their brand. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and others like him are on the record saying, hey, when I went to a city that I might only visit once a year, that might be the only chance that those fans have to see me play. They weren't going to cheat the fans by sitting out, even if they had nagging injuries. What the fans wanted and expected of them was something they took seriously. They didn't ask what was in it for them because in that sense, it wasn't about them. They had a sense of duty and obligation to others, and that drove how they played and what they did. LeBron James has taught every superstar in this generation how to do the opposite. And that's how we got to where we are today. Now, there's a group of people who believe that all we need to do is simply pay the players to play hard and to participate in a slam dunk contest or something like that. Although this sounds like a reasonable way to address it, it's really naive. There is an inherent limitation to the so-called aligning of incentives. Providing incentives has to produce an incremental increase in the value that is worth the extra effort that is being asked. And the modern superstar already makes like 40, 50, some of them even $60 million a year. So what's $500,000 really going to do? Is it going to move the needle? I'm sorry, I don't think it would. Incentives only go so far. At some point, we have to have a foundational group of people who do things because it's right to do. We cannot have a society where everyone must be compensated in order to do the right thing. There are some things that are just right to do, whether you get compensated or not, and even more so, things that you might even do if it costs you something. This cannot be fixed by the so-called aligning of incentives mentality. That actually makes the problem worse. What we need are people of principle, those who will do what is right because it is right. And no other motivation is needed. When we have a society that is always asking, why should I do the right thing? Well, then we've already lost. We've lost the boat. We should be doing the right thing because it is the right thing. And the modern superstar in the NBA should give their best effort because it's right to give their best effort. It is the fan who allows them to be paid tens of millions of dollars a year to essentially play a child's game. Concepts like loyalty and doing things because they are what's best for everyone and not only thinking about oneself are principles that cannot be abandoned and replaced with incentive alignment. That still puts the selfish focus where it need not be. When incentives don't align, people must still do the right thing. What the NBA and really our society more broadly needs is a new king or a new set of leaders. This is a leader or leaders who will embody the principles that we want to see amongst the people. Just like in the Bible where the kings did right, so the people will do right. When you embody these principles, they have a downward impact on those who are observing and participating. Hopefully the next superstar in the NBA will be like King Josiah in the Bible, for example. He did what was right, despite all the kings before him having done evil. And he went through all of Israel, tearing away all the vestiges of idolatry. Maybe we'll find a new group of spiritual and political leaders who will do the same, despite the best that we currently find ourselves in. And, as a secondary benefit, maybe we'll get a decent all-star game. But what do you think, friends? You think I lost the boat? You think I'm going too far? Some of you LeBron super fans, I know you're going to take issue with what I'm saying, but I'd like to hear your thoughts as usual. And let me know in the comments. If you like this content, please like, share, please subscribe. And don't forget, tell somebody about your boy. Till next time, friends. God bless you.